There's a daily ritual that I spoke about, and looking at my day at the end of the day, journaling really helps me a lot because that's where I get to talk to myself and see did I end up where I wanted to like the week. So I use a lot of AI tools now, and I can prompt it with instructions to say, this is the goal that I want to accomplish this week. And as I'm talking in my journal, it will give me an assessment to see where I left off at. And was I the best version of myself every day? Things like that. Just taking the self-assessment on a daily, weekly basis.
Let me invite you to sit back, drop your jaw, tongue, and shoulders. Take a deep breath, and if you wish, close your eyes for a moment and feel the beat within. In a few seconds, you just jumped from your head to your heart and felt the beat within, opening up to receive even more value and fulfillment out of your business and life. And today's episode. I'm your host, Nico van der Venne, confidant to successful CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs who are striving to achieve everlasting fulfillment. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I have a small request. If you find value in our podcast episode, please take a moment and share this with somebody who you might think be finding value in it. Also, if you could, leave a 5-star review. It always helps the show move forward. So thank you in advance, listeners, for your support, your continuous support for this long, ongoing podcast. But today I have a new guest, and I welcome to the Everlasting Fulfillment Podcast, Fuquan Bilal.
Thank you.
Hello, Fuquan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm so happy you could make it. It's been a way. So my first question I have is, let me start by asking you this first question: is, have you ever heard of CEO disease or founder syndrome?
No, I've never heard of that. Tell me about it.
Well, we touched base a little bit on it.
Yeah.
Room. Absolutely. So basically, what most of the listeners already know for a big part, it's about, the first topic is always isolation. As a leader at a high level,
Yes,
we end up being a little bit isolated in our environment. Some control issues, some self-awareness issues, sometimes, some Excel sheet management and stuff like that goes on within our business. And we're not always aware of what's going on around us, but especially what's going on within ourselves and the confrontations that we meet. Do you have any, I think you have a lot of experience in that because we chatted on
yes.
Podmatch in the past. So go right
Yeah, I
ahead.
mean, it is, every disease should have a cure, right?
Yes. Still trying to find a medicine, man. Still finding it.
Yeah, so it's all of us have different personalities, right? What I mean by that, certain avatars, certain people are stronger than others. So it just depends on what type of CEO you are. If you have strong execution skills, I actually do this with all of my team members and myself. So Gallup, which is a site you can go to, is a program where so you have EOS and you also have Scaling Up. These are like entrepreneurial systems you can use. In Scaling Up, I learned through Gallup the Clifton Strengths Report, where it kind of tells me my weaknesses, my strengths, and you have the Colby test. You have all the different tests that you can take, personality traits, to see where do you fit. And what I learned about myself is that I have strong execution skills. That it's like shoot first, ask questions later. The people are moving too slow, or they're not following the process, or whatever it is. So there's a cure though, learning how to delegate and have faith in your team members and people and believing that, you can pass that responsibility. Right. So, yeah.
Well, it's good to hear that there is a certain system that you were able to touch on. I think it's very valuable if you're able to. How did you reach to that point where you found this system?
Through masterminds. So through masterminds, I believe it was for me, because I've been in business for 26 years, kind of transitioned from corporate to real estate in 99. And then it was just learn by doing, right? And when I started to join masterminds and get around other business people, I started to learn about the entrepreneur operating systems. There's a good book, EOS by Gino Wickman. It talks about creating meeting rhythms, setting goals for the year, breaking them down into quarterly goals, having weekly reviews with your team to make sure everyone's on track, having a vision traction organizer, planning out to 10 years where you want your business to go. So just really building a system that you could put in place, and then rhythms to keep everybody accountable, right? So learning that part of the business helped me get more systematic than creating standard operating procedures around that. But still, it's never moves as fast as we would want it to move as an owner, right? We want it done tomorrow. We want to change on the spot, especially if you are a visionary. So finding a really good integrator, vice president or whatever you want to call it, office manager, operations person, to kind of run the play on what you're thinking and pushing back on you if it's not realistic or we can't do it now, we got to do it later. Just having those checks and balances in place kind of keep you sane, if you will.
Yeah, indeed. What's the point where yourself, you started 26 years ago? I can imagine a couple of years you were running the show on your own, or were you launched from day one?
Cool. You said, what's the show?
Yeah, so you were running the show at the beginning, as
Yes.
a solo
Playing
founder,
all the
basically. Yeah.
instruments, a one man band.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's the point where you come, yeah, just realizing that this is not the way to go? What triggered within you, or what triggered around you to do that?
So you get burnt out. You get tired, you get burnt out. You can only go for so long until you realize that there's a system that helps you become more efficient and more organized, and you can do more with the system and the process, right? And then you learn, once you start to put those things in place, how to create automations around certain things or tasks, or have team members that you can count on to delegate those responsibilities to, right? And you really just look at the value of your time, right? Should you be doing these tasks, or should someone else be doing this task so you can focus on the bigger things? And when I started to really look at that and go, am I supposed to be doing this, or is this an admin person that could be doing this, right? I could use my time for bigger things that's going to really move the needle, generate revenue, versus things that need to get done, but so I can hire for that. So once I realized that, that's kind of when I made the transition, because it avoids burnout.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you talked about gaining time. That's what I understood from what you were saying.
Correct.
Um, what's that value for you? Because a lot of people say, time is money, but
The
how do you
most
see that?
valuable currency is time, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And how do you see that? What does it make the most valuable currency?
Well, for me, is I have a routine that I go through every day. So I'll start at 4 a.m. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to get up at 3:30, but 4 a.m. is generally where I start to have that journaling time, reading time, meditation, exercise, building that foundation before I run off and start, doing business and checking emails and everything else. And just having that space and that time to recalibrate every day so I can be the best me is where I find the most value. And
Hmm.
then really time blocking throughout your day. Things that matters most must never be at mercy of things which matter least. I think that was Van Gogh. Is somebody who said that. So really structuring the rocks, uh, the pebbles, and then the sand, in that order, to make sure that you're focusing on priorities. So that's kind of time management. All of us struggle with that. There was another exercise that I got from the Gallup scaling up program. Is there's a red green exercise where you monitor your day. You probably heard this before, all the things you're doing, and you're marking in green, yellow, red for things that you shouldn't be doing, things that you should be doing, and you look at it to see where you spent the most of your time, and did you get the most value out of the day, right? So, it is the day running you, or you running the day, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and it's especially most important when you're looking at the day to day, because it's you're living today. A lot of people say you're living in the moment. That's also true, but to monitor and optimize what is more valuable. I call them ABC tasks. I've learned this from the VA office that I work with my team. They've got these ABC tasks that you kind of look into your day as an entrepreneur and looking at, okay, what, like you say, what really brings value? Well, where do I bring most value? Or what are things that other people like doing and I don't like them?
Yeah.
Like the
Your
wonderful thinking
delegates elevate.
situation.
Like, delegate to
Yeah,
elevate.
indeed, indeed. So yeah, and that's advantages because you start to realize as well how much time you're losing on tasks that you're not an expert in. Somebody else can do it much more efficient. So when you hit that point where delegation came up and so on, is there anything that happened around you that gave you yourself some issues of becoming, the solo leader in your company?
Yeah, I think the delegation part is tough for a lot of us because there's a trust level that goes with that, right? If I transition as responsibility, is someone going to be able to have and hold it, right? Are they going to be able to execute the way I do, right?
Hmm.
No one can do it like you do it. I think as an owner of a business, a lot of us suffer with that, wanting people to do things exactly the way we do it and execute the way we do it. So delegating becomes tough because it's like, I might as well just do it myself, right?
Yeah.
But learning how to build the right process and systems and training and then having that trust to transfer that responsibility gives you that freedom to focus on the higher level things. So I think those are some of the challenges that I went through. Um, because in my perfectionist mindset, it's never going to be as perfect as me, delegating things. But once you start believing in it and you have the right training and systems in place, you can delegate those responsibilities and only look for 80%, right? Never look for 100%. As long as things get done 80%, you're still moving the needle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very true. Yeah. So you don't really hit into the micromanagement story then.
Well, when you first bring people on, it's a micromanaged process and then it becomes macromanage. So learning how to start off and transition into macromanage, but the systems and the training you put in place should allow you, after the first few weeks to kind of pull back and let them do what you hired them for. So, and then those rhythms that I talked about, those same page meetings where you're just checking in with your team member 30 minutes once a week to make sure that they're still on track. The weekly rhythm meetings with your leadership team to make sure that the goals are still going in the same rhythm, executing. You can have a map where you map out your whole quarter, which is 13 weeks, and you map out the goal for the quarter. And then you say, okay, this is how we're going to get to the goal by doing this each week. And every week you meet your leadership team. Are we on track? Are we off track? With the team members they're managing, they can do what's called the 15-5. They can answer 5 high-level questions that takes them 15 minutes once a week. And those questions should be, what are your top items for the week? How did you make out with that? So that you can see that those team members are in alignment with the goals for the quarter as well. Any challenges they have, they can mention there. And it's just management tools and things that you can use to, create traction.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. So, for you yourself, what has been the process that's gone on within yourself to avoid those two terms that I mentioned earlier? The CEO disease and the founder syndrome. What have you yourself been doing except for using those systems and in placing people at the right place and so on? What's been going on inside you for that?
Well, it's a daily ritual that I spoke about. And, looking at my day at the end of the day, journaling really helps me a lot because that's where I get to talk to myself
Mhm.
and see, did I end up where I wanted to like the week? So I use a lot of AI tools now and I can prompt it with instructions to say, this is the goal that I want to accomplish this week. And as I'm talking in my journal, it will give me an assessment to see where I left off at. And, was I the best version of myself every day? Things like that. Just taking, I guess, a self-assessment on a daily, weekly basis to kind of see if, I was the best version of myself for that day. Did I speak to that person properly? Did I say the wrong thing to this person? Going through that mental exercise in your mind, playing the day from when you woke up to, where you are now in the present moment, at the end of the day to kind of just take a self-assessment. So those are some of the things, and it's never perfect.
Yeah.
You just try to put your best foot forward and go from there.
Mm. It's wonderful to hear the point where you've come in all these years. There's not a lot of people that can reach that point where you come into the self assessment. Like you're saying, picking up a journal and started writing, or I like what you said about AI, how you use AI. I also use AI for some personal development. I just did it today. I had these 7 prompts sent by somebody to me that really activates to a point where it gave me a complete curriculum of improvement parts that I saw as well. I didn't see them. There were kind of blind spots for me. And it's amazing how AI sometimes pings up from all your conversations and so on where the blind spots are. It's like a little coach, a little rational coach, I would say, that helps get you forward. So we've talking about a lot about your history and the steps you've made to become uh, a very good leader. In my assumption, in the short while we know each other. So what exactly is your business? What do you do day to day, and what's the goal there?
So it's real estate. For me, it's been a 26-year journey, as I mentioned earlier. Kind of jumped out the window and grew wings falling down, as they say. And we do a lot of real estate, primarily in New Jersey, the luxury spec homes we build from the ground up. And in the Southeast, primarily in Alabama and Georgia, we do a lot of affordable housing for low income families. I come from, a low income area, single parent household, mom on welfare. So what gives me my feeling of importance going back to those communities and adding value by giving seniors who can't afford a rent bump, affordable place to live, and whether it's Section 8 or some type of government assistant or resident providing that affordable quality housing for them.
Hmm. And so you're kind of balancing out things like high end real estate towards supporting the community and giving back. That's
Yes, the
that's
underlining thing that we focus on is quality housing, whether it's luxury or affordable.
okay. And what's the 50? What's the most important thing that people can learn from you right now on real estate?
Definitely, operational efficiency is where I like to where it's the place where I'm really at right now, right? On a mission to create as much efficiency as possible through systems, through tools, through KPIs, constantly knowing the numbers. Because like they said, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. So constantly empowering my team to tell the story behind the numbers and how we can get more efficient and drive the numbers, right? So that's one thing I can say to anyone that's really running a business is, understanding the P&L balance sheet. If you can get it to the point where you can put your team member's name on a P&L and balance sheet, who's responsible for those expenses and the revenue, so you can have discussions around that, I think is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing when you start looking at the numbers and know exactly where they're coming from and where they're going, especially when they're going. It's to see
Mhm.
what the future can bring and what investments you can do in the long term. So, what would be for you personally a message for managers, I don't know, middle management or even high level executives at this point that you really want to bring out there?
I would say positive intelligence. I see you a link is an assessment that people can take. And when we started the show, we talked about that. We talked about a lot, right? Self-assessment, understanding what your strengths are, whether it's execution, whether you're a relator, whether you're a conversationist, whatever they are, understanding your strengths and then how well it plays with other team members and just having that positive intelligence, whether it's emotional intelligence or whatever it is. And there's different assessments that you can take to kind of see who you are from answering questions like honestly, and then how your personality or who you are blend with other people. Um, that's kind of from a business perspective because it's all people,
Yeah.
right? It's all
Yeah.
people. It comes down to we the people, whether it's your employees or whether you're the owner, you're the ones that are successful. A business can't be successful. The people can be successful, which makes the business have traction. So, focus on the people part and, having that positive intelligence is important.
Hmm. Okay, well, great. Fuquan, I really love what you're saying, and I hear what you've done. I think it's amazing to really hear. I hear a lot of people who have gone in a completely different direction, to be honest. And the thing is, of course, how can they realize that they're going in the wrong direction, as we would presume, or take the perspective? Do you have anything that might trigger somebody in realizing that they're not, taking the right path?
Not being a good listener, right? If you think you know it all and you have all the answers, then you know you're definitely on the wrong path. I was actually having a conversation with someone earlier and saying, even your children are great teachers. Your employees are great teachers. And just being open to receiving information, making an assessment of it and see how you can apply it to what you're doing will, make you better, right? So leadership is about being able to follow also,
Yeah.
right? A leader can be a follower. And, I would say more of a manager, become more of a manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how the word leadership or leader and manager can, mix up with each other. At the end of the day, it's kind of, the master becomes the student or the student becomes the master, which are all these wonderful twists and turns that we can use within that space. So where can people find you if they might need some advice on, they're talking the processes on real estate, but some advice on leadership if need be. Where can people find you, and what can be a trigger to contact
So
you?
yeah, they can reach me anywhere on Facebook, Instagram at Fuquan Bilal. If you want to learn more about real estate, you can go to my website, nngcapitalfund.com, and schedule a discovery call.
Okay, great. Well, that's pretty straightforward and very easy to find. So I will put that in the show notes as well. Great. Thank you so much, Fuquan, for your time and coming on the show. I think we've covered a lot of stuff in very short time. You're very, focused on that clear information. I love that. It's clear that you're one of the top-notch leaders at this point, because I've met other people that take a long time to express what they need to say or want to say. So thank you very much.
I appreciate you having me on the show.
Likewise. So listeners, thank you very much again for listening to the podcast. And remember to give that 5-star review thingy and just click on the button and go back to the website and look at Fuquan's website. Do all the stuff that you need to do to become more and stronger as a leader. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Everlasting Podcast. Let me leave you with a few questions to answer in the comments. How do you see the different topics we discussed during this interview? What are your thoughts? What stood out for you? Let us know in the comments or just send us your feedback. We launch new episodes weekly. Don't miss any by ensuring you are subscribed to the show. Click the follow button now. We depend on the organic growth of the podcast to inspire more and more people. So by giving us a 5-star review and sharing this episode with at least one of your friends who might be interested in the subject, you will significantly help more people become inspired. But more than anything, I am grateful to you for taking the time to listen to the show. If you are also a successful CEO, founder, or entrepreneur who has inspiring words to say, feel free to contact us for an interview at contact@nicovandevenne.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you again soon with more inspirational conversations on achieving everlasting fulfillment.